Hey, Hayes Hills Kids volunteers. I am so thankful for you. You're the best. And I'm so glad that you work alongside of Nicole and I to help love the kids here at Hayes Hills well. In this video, I want to talk about our kindness rules. You've noticed by now, I'm sure, in every classroom and the big banners in Building A and Building C, that we have something that we call the kindness rules. It's a plaque that says, "At Hayes Hills Kids, we are kind to one another." And our kindness rules are the way that I've helped to summarize and think through the way that kids ought to be behaving. When you think about our time together, what are the rules for our classroom? What are the rules for being around? We do a lot of different events as Hayes Hills Kids, and so it's tricky to come up with a bunch of rules for every situation. But in terms of thinking about appropriate behavior, how should kids treat one another? And as adults, how should we treat the kids? I've used Ephesians 4:32 to be a guiding base for us. And I want to just talk to you for a second about being kind to one another and what I mean by that at Hayes Hills Kids. I'm a big believer that discipline is not about punishment, but rather that discipline is about teaching kids the right way to live. Obviously, every action we take has consequences, and sometimes punishments are necessary, so I'm not, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But as we study the scriptures, I do believe that what we find is that discipline, especially when you look at the Proverbs, is about teaching us the right way to live. And when misbehavior is going on, allowing consequences to happen, which sometimes might include a punishment, but also saying, hey, I don't want to just say, stop doing that. I want to say, here's the right way to do it. So if a kid's talking, I don't want to just say, hey, kid, be quiet. Or hey, kid, don't talk. I want to say, hey, here's how we can be quiet. Here's why we should be quiet. Here's when we can talk. We want to show kids not only, hey, this is the wrong way to do it, don't. But we also want to show kids the right way to live. And being kind to one another is how I summarize that for us here at Hayes Hills Kids. So at the top of the banner, it says, be kind to one another. And that's from Ephesians 4:32. We want kids to be kind to one another. Now, in context, this verse is something where Paul is writing to Christians and talking about how Christians ought to treat one another. We understand that not every child at Hayes Hills Kids is a Christian, though we are praying that they will be. But we do want to have kindness be the bedrock of the way that we teach kids to interact with one another. And not just any kind of kindness centered in the gospel, who Jesus is and what he's done for us. And so I summarize what it looks like for us to be kind to one another at Hayes Hills through three simple phrases. No hurts, stick together, and have fun. I have a hand signal that goes with each one of them. I go over this with the kids every week in kids worship. I think it's that important. And I'll go over it with you here now. So to be kind to one another, no hurts. The sign for that is to take your arms across your chest and make a big X. No hurts. And that means kind words and kind hands. We want to teach our kids that words are meant to build up, not tear down. And our hands are meant to do good for others and help them, not hurt them. So build up, not tear down. Help, not hurt. And so that is kind words and kind hands. Stick together is something that I have the kids just kind of wrap all their fingers around each other like so. And sticking together means having kind actions to our friends and our belongings, flowing from hands and words that build up and help, kind actions to our friends and to our belongings. We want to treat our friends with kindness, thinking of how Christ would have us treat others the way we want to be treated. I also have the kids look at the actions they take towards belongings. The reality is when we're here at Hayes Hills Kids, everything is not ours, it's the church's. And so we want to treat that with respect. And sometimes our friends bring things like a water bottle or a backpack. That's also not ours, and we want to treat that with respect. And even the things that are our own, like our own water bottle, we still want to have kindness and respect. So ripping up the cloth seating on the chair, drawing on the walls, all sorts of those things, those aren't kind. Those aren't kind ways to treat our belongings. Not sharing with our friends, that's not a kind way to behave. And by talking about these things, we can look and say, hey, Johnny, I noticed that you were coloring on the wall. Do you think that's a kind way to treat our belongings? No. What would be a kind way? Well, a kind way to treat our belongings would be to color on the coloring sheet because that's where it's appropriate. We don't want to just say, hey, stop coloring on the wall. We should. Coloring on the wall is bad, but we also want to say, hey, the right way to do it is coloring on the paper. The last one that we have on here for what it means to be kind to one another is have fun. And I always have the kids wiggle their fingers and act like their fingers are people having a dance party. And kind play with everyone is how we think about having fun. We do a lot of games. We do a lot of activities. We do a lot of fun events at Hayes Hills Kids. I mean, what would kids ministry be without fun? Am I right? But in order to have fun together, we have to have kind play. We don't want to cheat. We want to play by the rules when we do things like games in our Wednesday night program. We want to be respectful of our friends and play well with one another. And then on the bottom of the chart, I simply have the number one way we can show kindness in Hayes Hills Kids is to listen to another person when they're speaking. I always have the kids grab and wiggle their ears and remind them that when someone else is talking, we need to listen. We all want to be listened to, which means we should listen when other people are talking. I remind them of this regularly because, as I'm sure you've experienced, when you're trying to teach a lesson or do an activity, kids like to talk to each other, and we need everybody to listen. Not only so that one individual child can learn, but so that the whole group isn't distracted. So those are just a little bit of explanation on the kindness rules that I have here with Hayes Hills Kids. And I think these rules are really helpful to guide appropriate behavior. They show us why inappropriate behavior is inappropriate. It's not kind. And they show us what kind behavior can look like. Most importantly, it's rooted in Scripture. And if you have to pause one of your lessons or pause an activity and spend an entire morning or entire evening talking about being kind with your words or your hands, that's awesome. That is a good use of your time. We are teaching kids not only to avoid the bad things, but also how to live the right way, in a way that would ultimately love God, and love neighbor. So that's a little bit more about kindness and Hayes Hills Kids. If you have questions, feel free to shoot me an email. And I am thankful for you and look forward to serving with you the next time we're all together as Hayes Hills Kids.